still feel embarrassed when he does that. But I appreciate it. No, it's always great to to be here, but also always an incredible opportunity to be able to speak. So for those of you who love football, happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
So I'm a big sports fan, and since Reverend Peter is part of our congregation, we have to root for the Eagles. So sorry for you Patriots fans, but hey, we got to be loyal to our members here, so it's great. And it's just it's so wonderful. And hello to everyone there who's on ACIM gathering. And it's actually an incredible experience being on that, because I was out of town last week. And fortunately the time worked out where I was actually had the opportunity to be able to download the app and be able to get on and be able to actually listen to the Sunday gathering last week. And it was just a reminder of how fortunate that we are, in this time where no matter where you are at, you still can, be part of the Sunday gathering live, if you choose to. So it was just a beautiful awakening to be able to recognize that and be able to still feel like I was part of it, because I definitely do miss when I'm not here. So it was a wonderful thing. Yeah. So today, my talk today is about loving our true self. The interesting thing is, Spirit works in mysterious ways. Because when I first came up with this idea to talk about this today, I already had exactly what I wanted to talk about, the areas that I wanted to touch upon. Well, when I started, writing up my notes, the Spirit had something else in mind. When they felt that it was important for me to share today. And so instead of fighting it and saying, no, I want to do this, this was my initial thought, I just, went with it and decided to just trust and know that Spirit always has something in mind and some plan for us. The other thing that I wanted to, highlight, to touch upon, as we also know, this is February, the start of the month, which is actually Black History Month, as well. So Black African American, History Month, where it is an opportunity for us just to remember and just to keep in mind of all the individuals who has contributed to this world that we are in, specifically Black, African Americans, whether that was a sports person, whether that was someone who was in the arts, whether that was someone in entertainment, whether that was someone in politics. There's just so many, a variety of different fields that we've been fortunate to have, important leaders and important people in our lives to be able to contribute to the African American Black History Month. Whether that was, Martin Luther King Jr., whether that was Malcolm X, whether that was Harriet Tubman, whether that was Rosa Parks, whether that was President Obama, Muhammad Ali, Langston Hughes, like the list can go on and on. Reverend Rudy Carmeludi. And so the list goes on and on with regards to that aspect of it. But the thing that stuck out for me, that made me realize that, is because it's important, at least for me, to recognize what other individuals done for our country, for this world. Because in essence, in order for me to be actually true to myself and to be able to love myself, it's important for me to understand what my history was about, to understand, what they did and what they actually contribute to. Because, the truth of the matter is, we all have history and we all understand what our histories can be about. But the big thing for me that I had to look at and realize is, because of everything that happened with slavery and all that stuff, it stays with us. And because it stayed with us, we may not find that we actually love ourselves because of that. And so when we go back to our history and see what people does, it helps. At least it helps me to recognize that and to understand the importance to understand and love my true self. And fortunately, we have an incredible spiritual practice, A Course in Miracles, that actually helps me to be able to remind me of things like that. And so it was just a beautiful thing to keep in mind regarding that. And the Course tells us this: the light of truth is in us, where it was placed by God. So the truth is in us. The truth, the fact that we actually already love ourselves, is in us. But what happened is, in this world that we are in, we allow all these obstacles enter into our minds that gets in our way to actually really trust who we really are. And for me, it's important to remember that because I've had a couple of incidents this week that put me in a space that was not good, that did not just feel right or healthy for me. And it made me recognize and realize is when I'm in that space, I'm definitely not loving myself. I'm actually hating my true self. And that was tough to realize and to really understand, like, oh my God, that's what it means when you're in that negativity. But fortunately, taking a step, taking a moment to recognize that and to be able to come out of that, that is when the beauty comes in place. Light of truth is in me and in us. And for me, the big thing that came up was regarding work. As we know, work tends to bring up a lot of stuff for us for many, many different reasons. And one of the things I do, as a lot of you guys know, is I do a lot of work in the African American community. That's what I do. And part of that, is that I do it, throughout the year. But of course, in February, there is 2 big events that I'm in charge of that I help put on. That's the National Black HIV Awareness Day event, which is going to be happening next Wednesday, that I have to finish getting prepared for. And then the other one is this event called Generation, which is about looking at LGBT history of Black and African Americans. So there are 2 very powerful events, but they're very important to me because it's definitely bringing history in it. So I've been preparing and getting focused for that. But also part of my job is actually working with the agencies to make sure that they do direct service, for the community here in San Francisco. Well, needless to say, there is this one particular agency that continues to push my button very much. And so, and this week, it really got bad. And, to the point where I was exhausted. It was hard for me to get up in the morning because I just did not want to go into the office and be able to deal with this particular agency again. Because it's just like, in my mind, I felt and I thought that they were not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so it was frustrating me. Even though they would ask a question or a response, instead of me coming from a very loving place, I was coming from a place of the ego. And that's not the right way to do it. I was creating my own tension that was not necessary. And the reason why that was happening was I bought in to all those ego thoughts. And when I do that, I was not being true to myself. I was not loving who I am. And being able to recognize that the work that they're doing is important. And that all I had to do was to turn that over and be able to see and recognize that let go. That's that you need to let go, be present, come from a loving and healing place, not from a judgmental place, not from a fearful place. And that was happening. And that's what I was doing. And that's why I was exhausted. That's why it was hard for me to get up. Because I let that eat at my mind for so long that it was not productive. It's not productive. And it was just a huge reminder of how much debilitating that I can actually be, and to be able to change that. And so it also reminded me of one of the lessons this week, and actually I think it was the one, the 31st, regarding something about seeing peace instead, and being able to shift that and seeing a situation more from peace. That was the beauty of it. Recognize, yes, when I'm able to see that from a peace perspective, how much that changes and how loving that really, really is. And it was such an incredible reminder and an incredible gift regarding that. And then as usual, the Spirit always some way manifests itself into my mind to remind me of these things. And then it happened again for this Friday, where another big shift happened that transpired to the point where it actually ended on a good note. So even though my week started off very bad and me struggling and going through all that stuff, not believing in myself, having all those doubts, it shifted and really changed on Friday. The Course tells us this: we are no longer asking the ego what salvation is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. We are asking it of truth. And for me, part of that truth is accepting what my purpose is in this world. When we're accepting our purpose in our world, that's when we're actually loving ourselves. And so on Friday, I had to go to this K-Pig fair. It's for people to do their internship to become a psychologist. And so it's the opportunity to go and speak to all the different agencies that may, that are there to be able to talk to them and see where you want to go. And as some of you guys know, early on, I'm a part of the healing team, but I put a request in the healing team regarding, my own roadblocks that I was having regarding me working on my dissertation and doing my internship. And so, applying for my internship and all that stuff. And so, it slowly started shifting and lifting, and I started getting more inspired, specifically regarding my internship. And so this fair happened on Friday. And so a couple of things transpired that was so amazing and so beautiful for me. One of them was, it was the opportunity to be able to see my cohort that I've been going to school with for so long, finally. Because once you get to the stage where you're working on your dissertation and your internship, we're not in classes anymore. So we don't see each other anymore. And we had such an incredible bond when we was going through those classes together. To be able to see each other, if you want to talk about holy instant and just the joy of this world and us loving ourselves, that moment, if you were there, you was able to feel that energy. And the reason why that energy was there was, I was able to shift my perception and the space that I was in at that moment. And it's clearly that they were in a different space when they all saw each other. And it was just an incredible moment, to the point where all the people from the different agencies noticed that. And they even made comments, when we went to them and talked to them, I was like, wow, you guys are so close. And that reminded me, it's like, that's what being true to ourselves. That is what's loving ourselves. When we're able to allow ourselves to embrace the joy and the beauty of people who are part of our lives. So even though we have not seen each other for God knows how long, it didn't matter. Because that moment recreated an incredible sense of space and love for one another that was just remarkable. And who would have thought that? And I think because of the struggles I went through earlier during the week and working through that, Spirit knew that that day on Friday was going to be the moment where I was going to be able to shift and to recognize what my true self is. Then, of course, tells us this: for here we come to a decision to accept ourselves as God created us. For here we come to a decision to accept ourselves as God created us. And for me, the other thing that transpired that just pretty much blew me away was me and one of my colleagues who was there. We went through all the different tables, and they were talking about our experiences, about which one that we may apply for and not apply for, and which one stood out for us. And then there was one particular one that said Girls Inc. And so we both saw that, and we were like, nah, we're not going to go to that one because we felt that it was going to be focused on working with girls and stuff like that, and we both were male, so we didn't feel like that that would be perfect for us in our minds that we were thinking. So we didn't even think about going to that. Well, apparently the Spirit had something in mind, had something totally different than what we were thinking. And so then what happened was the two women that were at that table, they saw us and they were like, I want you two to come over. And we both were like, nah, that's good. They're like, no, we want you to come over. And so I was like, okay, fine. And so we both, went over there. And so then they explained what their program was about. And even though the program says Girls Inc., they do work for both girls and boys, and they work with family in the Oakland area and the San Leandro area. They are working with the underserved populations that exist in those two areas. And I'm like, okay, Spirit, you're putting me exactly where I'm supposed to be at. Because my passion and my work is to do some healing in my community. And knowing that Oakland has, a prominent, big African-American community versus in San Francisco. And to know that that is where the moment is supposed to be. And in doing that conversation that I was having with them, it became even more and more clear that when we have to go do our ranking, that's going to be my top choice. Because that is where I'm supposed to be. And the beauty of that is I will hopefully get the opportunity to work with kids and youth and start very early on to help, to heal all the potential trauma that may exist in that community and in my community. I don't have to wait until they're adults. It can happen now. And the reason why it's able to happen now is because I'm going to be able to bring my true self, be able to bring the love that I have within myself, and help model and support them so they can see the love in themselves. And that's the way it works. All these years of the work that I've been doing had led up to this. My path, my journey. So all those appearance or struggles that I went through, I was supposed to go through that. Because Spirit knew where I'm supposed to go next. But in order for me to get to that point, I had to understand my history. I had to understand what they went through and understand that they actually loved themselves as well. And because they loved themselves, they were able to contribute to this world that we are in. And it's allowed me now to contribute to this world that we are in. To contribute in a way that it's meant for me. And the great thing about it is, it's not only because of my psychology background, it is because I have the Course of Miracles. I have a spiritual practice that will allow me to use that energy to manifest, to extend the love that each and every one of us deserve, and that each and every one of these incredible kids that I have not even met yet, but I already feel it and know deep down in my bones that that is where I'm supposed to be starting in the fall. It was brought to us. So for us to love ourselves, just remember, we already do. We just forget sometimes. We just allow those roadblocks to get in our way. But it's in us. It will continue to stay in us. We just have to remember to bring it out, to embrace it, to accept it, and to love it. And that's my talk.